Sunday, July 10th of last year, my sister-in-law Barbara phoned me. Near as I can recall, that had never happened before, not once in 30-some years of our in-lawfulness. As I considered her name on my caller ID, it crossed my mind she might be wanting to invite me to a celebration of my brother's 70th birthday some weeks away. But the darkness in me feared it was more likely she was calling to let me know he was dead. Brother Rob's medical history is long and wretched. As a child, he was overtreated with x-rays for some now forgotten inconsequential symptom and lost 40% of his hearing. He should have been dead at 22 when he first contracted Hodgkin's lymphoma. But experimental treatments had recently emerged, and the doc said they would beat that sucker into remission, and they did, with massive, debilitating chemo and months more radiation. 12 years later, the Hodgkins recurred and dragged him through another 6 weeks of treatment hell, ending in a prognosis of cautiously optimistic. Then 2 years ago, 30 medically uneventful years later, his chronic sore throat was diagnosed as base of tongue cancer, almost certainly attributable, he was told, to all that nasty radiation that had been meted out to him decades before. The newest surgical approaches were less disfiguring, but there were no guarantees. The week before the robotic tongue surgery, he asked me to meet him for a late dinner in the city, and I did. But I parked at a 1-hour meter, and we talked only about our kids, except for when I picked up the check and our eyes met accidentally, and I said, "It isn't fair." And he said, "No, it isn't." But even that horror he beat with miraculous surgical art and craft, a dash of chemo, and yes, more radiation. In contrast to my big brother, I had my tonsils removed when I was 4, chickenpox when I was 6. Since then, I've been fine, pretty much. Occasional tests, no unmanageable results. Smoking, drinking, gorging on beef, no matter. Picture of health. Maybe that helps account for why over the years I missed it all, every episode. I mean, I knew that he was ill, even that he was mortally ill, but I simply didn't process the information. He was diagnosed, he was hospitalized, he was treated, he was recovered. I was oblivious. Barbara was calling from the Level 1 Regional Trauma Center at Stony Brook University Hospital. This time, it wasn't illness. My brother, she reported, had fallen. Fallen, that is, 22 feet off the upper deck of his vacation home in Sag Harbor. Fallen into a bramble where he lay for an hour until he was missed. He had been medevaced to the trauma intensive care unit. He had broken his scapula, 8 ribs on one side, 1 rib on the other, twice fractured his pelvis, punctured his lung, and broken his coccyx. They had surgically removed his ruptured spleen. He was, she declared without any apparent irony, lucky to be alive. A hospital visit could not be avoided. A week into his stay, Rob was cordial. He was chatty. He was positively freaking jovial. He had almost died again and simply would not let me in on it.